Advocate Thuli Madonsela, the former public protector, joins us now today. We're going to be with her until 6 o'clock in the evening. So first of all, let me say thank you so much, because I know you've been very, very busy today, speaking to several of us, talk show hosts and current affairs people. And we're hoping that today you get a chance to speak to the nation, our listeners, because we often get calls and questions around you, about you. And I thought it would be best that you field those yourself. And of course, we've had many conversations over the years about several issues. And it's perhaps time to just, wrap it up and put it to bed.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. And it's a pleasure to be here. I know we're supposed to do 2 hours. If it's possible to do 1.5 hours, that would be great.
We can.
I need to dash off to Verts. You know that things have not turned out as nicely as we had hoped for today, and I would like to join my colleagues in looking at how do we calm things and how do we wrap it up so that there could be classes, but students also are not harmed.
You're on the parents committee. I mean, you've already started off the conversation on that note, so let's continue with it.
Yes.
What is your view of how the situation has unraveled? I mean, we've seen the scenes of violence, some institutions shutting down today, the march to the union buildings. You called for calm and peace yesterday, but why do you think that this persists?
There's a lot of trust deficits in the process. It seems to me that we let the anger boil or percolate for too long. There is genuine anger among students, and some of them have already been excluded for financial reasons. There are those who are just destitute because of the conditions they live under, which are inhuman, which violate their non-derogable right to human dignity. And of course, they have a right to access to education. However, there are attempts now to solve the problems from all sides. Where we're missing each other is there isn't an ongoing conversation. For example, I know that government today issued a statement on something. My concern is that all of these things should be maybe results of agreements, because the problem with students is that they believe they're not being heard. For us who are grown-ups and who are talking to everyone, we do know that they're being heard, but we need platforms that make sure that they are heard. And one of the sore points, of course, is the presence of the police. The police from their side believe they have a valid reason to be in these campuses to make sure that they protect libraries and other forms of infrastructure. The students, on the other hand, believe, as we believed in the 70s and in the 80s, that you can't study properly with
a gun in your face.
Yes, with guns.
And I want to ask you this.
Like
we've heard reports today of a former SRC leader being shot in the back with rubber bullets.
Yes.
Are human rights violations being committed during this
I think
turmoil?
And this issue of rubber bullets came up at University of Pretoria previously, and my daughter was one of those who were wounded with a rubber bullet. I think where we've dropped the ball, we haven't engaged with SABC around what are their own protocols. Should they be using rubber bullets? Certainly when there is a disturbance, there has to be a way of breaking it. But are rubber bullets the best? Because they are hurting people. And if a rubber bullet hit you in the eye, you could lose an eye. For me, it's a question of looking at, if there's a disturbance, is there an option that is more human rights centered than the use of rubber bullets?
Hold the thought, Advocate Madonsela. I've got somebody on the line who wants to say hello to you. You'd be surprised when was the last time you saw him. And I'd like to find out from him how you first met and what his impressions of you are. Mr. J. Naidu, a very, very good afternoon to you. One of the founding members of COSATU. How are you?
I am very well.
Okay, Mr. Mr. Naidu, I'm not sure if I think you're on a cell phone. If I could just ask you to move around and perhaps as you do so, As I said, how did you first come across Advocate Madonsela? And you obviously have a recent relationship now that's been in the media.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's always a pleasure to talk to Advocate Thuli Madonsela and to catch up as old friends from the union movement.
Wow.
And it just demonstrates the type of quality and caliber of leadership that the trade union movement has produced in this country, and why it should continue to produce people like her. So I'm very happy that she is playing a very prominent role in trying to negotiate an end to the education crisis, and particularly an end to violence, because violence in no situation, no country in the history of humankind has been the end goal or proved to be a solution in building peace or securing peace for a negotiated settlement on any issue. And I think you are the best person, Advocate Thuli, for that. And so I'm very happy to be here. I really, if I had the power, I would nominate you for president, and I would happily carry your bag.
Thank you, Jay. It's really such a pleasure to speak to you and to reconnect. Except that when we met, I think we met during the unity talks that led to the formation of COSATU, when we had the UDF7 and with Samson Doe, Emma, was it Emma Mashinini and the Gau, and all of those people that were on our team.
Yes, exactly.
It's so fascinating to look back to the 80s. I think the third part, the Tsepiso and my colleague Jay, is I never thought in my lifetime I would involved in supporting a struggle again.
Why?
Yes.
Is it because of the hope that we portrayed, or is it because it was such a long-fought struggle that there was no room for failure? And can we talk about failure?
Jay, do you want to start or should I start?
You do.
I think that part of it was that we were we deluded ourselves, because Nelson Mandela said even the most benevolent of governments have within them propensities for human failings. However, in our view, you're right, there were two reasons we thought we would never be where we are right now. We thought we had the great constitution, one of the greatest constitutions in the world that packaged everything. Secondly, we thought because we knew where we had been, and we knew that we had been at the heart of the beast during apartheid, we would never allow ourselves to descend to that heart of the beast again. But I think we should have kept the home fires burning a little bit better. Now when we reflect, I think we should have been more active in monitoring social justice, because this whole issue is about social injustices. Inequality has grown in South Africa, and poverty has grown.
And I'm glad, Mr. Naidu, that Advocate Madonsela talks about we, because that speaks to collective responsibility. And I think every single person who's been involved needs to reflect, as she says, and take responsibility. You once have been quoted as saying you would change the electoral system if it were up to you. What else would you change?
Well, sharing what Thuli has said now, I think having together with her fought for social justice our whole lives, we have, and being remarkably successful in achieving a political revolution peacefully when we were sliding into a racial civil war. And we should never forget that we are still a miracle of a politically peaceful revolution.
Absolutely.
That, I realize today that while we were so focused on changing the system, we forgot a very important thing, that we have to change the human being. Absolutely. We have to change human consciousness. Because no matter how perfect our constitution, how perfect the system is that we create, the propensity for people whose minds have not yet changed, it will be to corrupt whatever system there is. And I think for me, that is one of the fundamental things. Of course, at another level, I think we needed to have proportional representation at the point of transition because we wanted everyone in the tent, every party. And the idea of a winner takes all based on constituency would have excluded many people, particularly the right wing. And we wanted them to be part of a democratic process. But that has led to a situation where we've given all power to the party bosses. And the party bosses themselves have become so alienated from the people and even their members, but still control who gets into parliament, who gets to be the mayor, who gets to be the minister. And I think that's why I have proposed that there has to be a hybrid system that is already part of the recommendation made by Van Zyl-Slabbert in a government-appointed commission into this issue, that we should move to a hybrid.
Mr. Naidu, thank you so much for dropping in on our conversation. Really appreciate it. And we continue our conversation with Advocate Thuli Madonsela. Remember, you can call in on 0891 104 209. 34701 is an SMS line at R1 per SMS. There are quite a few coming through, including tweets. I'd like to say to the listeners, though, this is my own personal request. You can see how you navigate it. We're here to speak to Advocate Madonsela about the work that she's done, about her ambitions, and I'd really like to ask that we respect both her office and that of the current public protector. I don't want to go into this narrative of pitting two individuals, professionals against each other.
Absolutely.
And personally, as a woman, I
No.
just don't think it holds water to go down that route. We can ask her about what she's done and what she should have done, and I'm sure she's very happy to answer to that. 0891 104 209. There are lots of questions. I don't have any regrets, only lessons learned. This is a quote of what you've said. Katlego Hendricks quotes you. Do you have any regrets in terms of just, if you look at the past 2 weeks, because it's a culmination of the past 7 years, at the top of your mind, would you say, do you have any regrets?
Not personally, not as a pub protector. I have lessons that I've learned. For example, I was saying earlier today that the conversations with government should have continued. Even when I requested meetings and those meetings didn't take place, I should have insisted. Because when you sit quietly in lounges behind closed doors, you have more constructive conversations. There's no posturing. I also said that the conversation between me and the Speaker, when Max Sisulu was my boss as the Speaker of Parliament, I had regular meetings with him. I had an opportunity to pick up the phone and say to his staff, can you arrange a meeting? I'm working on this thing. This is my reasoning. And therefore there was less suspicion and less presumption around what are you doing. And he would also arrange at least once a year that I meet with all of the presiding officers, the senior ones, the four, to discuss. I also had more meetings with political parties until last year. Then we got too busy, and I regret that. Maybe I would say that's a regret, because when you don't meet to discuss assumptions, to discuss concerns, each party makes its own assumptions and conclusions.
The situation unravels.
And then, yes, the situation gets worse.
So,
yes.
Advocate Madonsela will come to some of those issues, including criticism against you that you think you walk on water. I want us to talk about some of those reports that were not completed. I want you to talk a little bit more about the Gogo Dlamini reports that have not made headlines and why you think that they haven't. What goes through your mind? I know we spoke about what you said you wish you could have done better, but I mean, there are questions. I'm going to read some of the SMSs. Xolani Skate saying the media chose stories that will sell and run away. She treated all cases equal. Gogo Dlamini headline, he asks, your views are extremely discriminatory. Why don't you employ him, as it's because a point of 14 and 15? Okay, I'm not sure where that conversation comes from. But even some of the SMSs, and I've asked two of the people who've written SMSs to say, you chose, for instance, not to investigate the issue of the apartheid era fraud and monies, but that you were just a headline chaser yourself.
Well, firstly, that incident was quite unfortunate. First, I never chased any headlines. If I chase headlines, a lot of the cases that we have would have reached headlines by now. For example, one of the investigations we haven't done was a SASA investigation where there were serious allegations against, that's the South African State Security Agency. There were serious allegations against Minister Dlamini, but we didn't get to.
Are you able to share
investigate
those allegations?
Well, it was allegations of tender corruption and things like that. But she knows about it because it was brought to her attention, and there were allegations regarding SASA itself in terms of how tenders were done, how people were given security, VIP security without going through proper processes. I'm just giving you one example where Minister Dlamini is one of the people who have been very critical of me. If I was chasing headlines and also being vindictive, I would have selected those kinds of people. The way this system operates is that I don't even decide what cases to investigate. We have a triaging team that does that. Once a matter has been determined to be for investigation, they decide, they classify it, whether it goes to our administrative justice and service delivery unit. And if it's an early resolution, which is many Gogo Dlamini matters are, it would be then classified as early resolution. If it's a governance failure or ethics or corruption matter, it would go to our good governance and integrity matter. Then there is a few that are classified as special attention matters. Those are the ones I should have looked after. They would be complex. They would involve politicians. But ask any person. Ask a survey and ask people and say, do a survey, one of these goodies, and ask how many people have met me in person on those Gogo Dlamini cases. How many cases have I sat around the table and conciliated on when they were Gogo Dlamini cases? Even though we divided our work in such a way that the Gogo Dlamini cases were supposed to belong to my deputy. But because they were the most important cases, all of us were seized with those cases, and I was involved in those cases.
Okay, I want you to answer the question on the apartheid billions.
Yes.
I know it's a long story, but before you get to that, I said to you I might just drop a few surprises for you. People that you've come across in life, you've worked closely with. People who have good views of you, people who may not have such good views of you. Let me introduce Professor Thandabantu Nhlapo.
Oh my God. Wow. How do you find these great human beings? Wow.
Professor Nhlapo.
This is such a joy.
Oh, the joy is mine, Prof. Me and you come a long way.
And where's that? Why don't you both tell us?
Did you tell them that you used to be in my class?
Well, she didn't even tell me that you're going to come. So you tell them, where have you met me, and what was I doing when you met me? Yes.
That is a good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Prof. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
It's such a pleasure. So tell us.
And I, we go back a long way. She used to in my classes at the University of Swaziland many years ago.
Yes.
Which I guess is where the relationship really began. But it meandered generally in positive directions when we were in the gender trenches together shortly after release of Mandela, 93, 94, 95.
Yes.
And then I think the next step truly was the Law Commission, where a couple of generations later, you did the job I used to do as full-time member.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but we also were in the theme committee, we're the two-person committee in the National Assembly. You recall? What? Yes.
Do you remember Richmond?
Oh, yes. The Mkeke was part of that.
Yes. So I used to convene Chabi, this group of three of us, myself, Richmond, and Thuli, it was called the Ad Hoc Committee on Traditional Leadership and Customary Law.
Yes.
Now, Prof, allow me to butt in here and ask you this
yeah.
question, because we're also running out of time. Given the work that you've done together, especially around the drawing up of the Constitution, constitutionalism in South Africa, how would you rate it, and how does it compare to the rest of the continent and the world indeed?
How does it compare?
Yes.
Well, for me, just being a member of that committee, remember the Constitution was developed in committees. There were 6 team committees.
Yes.
We were the only one that advised all 6 team committees because issues of customary law were expected to come in under all teams. And one of the things I can share with the nation of South Africa is that the language of Section 211 of our Constitution owes a little bit to myself. There's a grammatical thing I fixed, but the important one are the words subject to the Constitution, and that is down to your guest over there. When customary law and traditional leadership, the role, function, and status of traditional leaders was acknowledged subject to the Constitution. Truly persuaded us that should come in, and it's having a huge effect.
So you're saying, Advocate Madonsela?
Well, it was a group effort, and I remember when it had changed. The original version, though, Prof, was we wanted equality to trump customary law, and then we had drafted something to that effect, and then we came back to our respective places or the universities where we're working. I think Prof was now already at the commission.
Yeah.
And then Prof advised me that they had changed it. The politician had changed it, and it was now neutral. There was no trumping anymore. And we requested to go back there in Cape Town. And the compromise then was the subject to the Constitution as opposed to subject to the equality clause.
I want to thank you both. Prof, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
Very much for having me.
Professor Thandabantu Nhlapo will get back to the calls 0891 104 209. Let's get you to call in now. Pose your questions directly. I'm going to read some of them, and I'll get the former public protector advocate Thuli Madonsela to speak further on this. Hloni Nyatanyani says, is there any report that advocate Madonsela could have handled better? The real Tinta says, can you please ask her, would she involve herself to the state capture if they make amends? I'm not sure what that means. Perhaps you could call in. I'm an African says, Advocate Thuli reminds me of the well-known story of David versus Goliath. And, okay, so there are quite a few. How does one remain resolute when your bosses want you to be a puppet and stool pigeon? Just think about that, but let's take a quick break and we're back. 0891 104 209. We'll start with you, Bongani, in Cape Town. Hi.
Hi, good day, ma'am. How are you?
Fine, Bongani.
Hi. Yes. Thank you so much. I just want to ask Madam, why Amanyama case, like smaller Nyana case that has been approved in her office, or for future reference, that they must be like divided and be given to the authorities that are in the office to be pronounced publicly, not wait for the public protector herself to pronounce it, because it means like we focus on one issue sometimes that took a long of time, and some other criminals get away with a lot of
point taken.
Thank you.
Sigyn Randberg, please be short. I'm going to beg all of you because I don't want to cut you off. Sigyn Randberg, hi.
Thank you very much. I wanted to thank this very, very brave lady for the tremendous courage she displayed in facing down the highest officers of the land over and over again, and not devoting her time solely to Gogo Dlaminis, whom we all love, of course. And I hope she will carry on using her powers to muster the strength of elders to pull them together to fight
Thank you, Sig.
for the same cause. Thanks.
Thank you, Sig. Dlamini in Mthatha, hi. Please be short.
Hi, I will be very short. I would like to compliment Thuli and say to her she is one of the best ever people to ever live in South Africa. She is the pride of the nation. And I was wondering, how come she'd be able to do her job and yet she's so soft-spoken? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dlamini. So I think it goes back to the cases that I asked. If you could also briefly answer that, the issue of the smolanyana cases that were not in the public domain. But I think the question there is, why did you not delegate that duty so that they could get attention? I think the implication is that you overshadowed that. The other questions I did say was okay. There's Khoni Netanyan who asked about your former deputy. What are the thoughts around him not securing clearance? And I think that is a very important question to ask. What happened there, and what are your thoughts around it?
Thank you. Maybe I should start with the simple one. My former deputy, that I can't really judge why he didn't make it. It was up to Parliament. Where I made a comment was that the involvement of the State Security Agency was unusual, and also the fact that these stories were made available with half the information, and then people eliminated from the race, and only thereafter it would be said that all this information was incorrect, is something that Parliament in future should deal with it. I think for the integrity bodies going forward, they shouldn't be cleared by the State Security Agency. There should be some integrity body, perhaps based at the Judicial Services Commission, that does these clearances without a vested interest, because the State Security Agency is part of the executive of South Africa. And obviously it would have an interest in ensuring that somebody who becomes public protector may be executive-minded. I'm not saying that they were, but I'm saying that kind of suspicion would be necessary. But at the end of the day, it was Parliament picking up the most suitably qualified person, and we would like to believe that that is what they did, and we congratulate the new public protector for that purpose.
So on the Gogo Dlamini cases, and the ones you feel didn't, occupy enough public attention, and also why didn't you delegate those to be publicized, the findings thereof?
Well, firstly, currently the Pub Protector is the final authority on cases that are decided in a manner where there are adverse findings against government. That is the approach at the moment. However, when the findings are that we think government did nothing wrong, the investigators make those findings, and their supervisors can sign those reports. The majority of reports that we sign are closing reports. Also, when there's a settlement, a lot of our cases are resolved through whispering truth to power. And when I became Pub Protector, I introduced mediation, face-to-face mediation, where a discussion takes place and people look at each other's pain, and you can see how you wronged this person and the impact on their lives. And a lot of those cases result in solutions. People get paid, people get taken back to work, and people get the health services they need in hospitals if it involves health services. We don't publicize those because these settlement agreements, and then we have a closing letter that just confirms that this matter was settled. The rest that we issue, perhaps the new Pub Protector may want to consider delegating the power to write reports. But I just want to indicate that all of the Gogo Dlamini cases were also issued with fanfare. When there was an interesting part is the last media briefing. If you remember the last media briefing, there was no single headline-grabbing case. It was all Gogo Dlamini cases.
And yet the questions that you got to answer.
Not a single person will remember what those cases were. Prior to that, the previous media briefing was also a Gogo Dlamini case. But what I've done is, when I do public speaking, I always use the Kokotlamini cases as examples. I rarely use the so-called high-profile cases.
Very briefly, Advocate Madonsela, because I did ask this question, and I know it's also coming up on the tweets here. Apartheid era corruption.
The CX report.
Yes.
Let me proceed with that. Firstly, it's wrong to say I didn't give it priority. If I didn't want to investigate this matter, it would have ended in 2013. I would have just said I don't want to investigate it, which is what I did. The investigation took place after our triage team declined this matter. I don't decide what comes in and what doesn't come in. I only get involved when people appeal to me. When this matter went to our intake assessment and customer service team, the team said this matter can't be taken. The issues involved happened long before we were created as a public protector. The trail is cold in terms of where we can find documents and people. And thirdly, that the information would be difficult to find. And also the matter is older than 2 years. But I investigated it after they appealed. Advocate Paul Hoffman, who lodged this complaint, appealed to me and said, no, it's an easy case to find. You will find the money. You might even ask government to give you some of it. And I went into it. I investigated it myself. I've been to London. I've interviewed former President Begi, several ministers, even Reserve Bank Governor Chris Stolz has been interviewed. To say I didn't give this matter priority is people are mischievous. And incidentally, the mischievous people just came onto the bandwagon now when the so-called state capture investigation started, and then they tried to pit these two against each other.
Okay. Yes. Advocate Madonsela, we'll come back to that because I know you said you had finalized that report. I just want a brief answer on what happened there. So we'll take a quick break and we've got another surprise for you. Well, hope you are enjoying the conversation, and we'll get more of your calls and more your SMSs in just a moment. So in a line, we're in conversation with the former public protector advocate Thuli Madonsela. So just a sentence, eventually what happened with that investigation into the apartheid era fraud or corruption cases that were referred to?
I investigated the part of the CX report that Advocate Paul Hoffman asked me to investigate, which is why did the government not implement the findings of Mike Otley? The report was finally concluded after a long investigation, and on Friday, I sent it back the day before for corrections. And on Friday, some reports came back to me, some didn't. But it is a complete investigation. Okay,
so you couldn't. I
couldn't sign.
Yes,
well,
sign
it was going to be a provisional report that would then go to the parties and the final report.
I don't want to keep this next guest waiting too long, because I think he can also, advise, concur on some of the difficulties of your job. Advocate Lawrence Mushwana, it is it's so good to have you on the line, and I'm so glad you agreed to speak to us.
Hi, Advocate Mushwana.
How are you, Advocate Madonsela?
What a pleasure to have you on board. It's been a privilege to walk on the shoulders of you and Advocate Bakwa.
Well, thanks for SABC for thinking of me when they have you there.
I think it's because it's a tough job, isn't it, Advocate Mushwana? And it's a case of damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I'm sure you had those experiences.
That's true.
Yeah, it is indeed a tough job. There was a time when I even thought maybe we must take some few journalists or one of them and make them a public protector just for that 7 years and wait and hear how they'll be reporting on this matter.
And what do you think would change? What do you think would change?
They would have empathy.
You'll definitely come out a changed person from how, or you will help us change the mindset of some individuals who tell that the work of a public protector is an easy one. It is definitely not.
Didn't you want to take them to walk them through the Nandoni report to look at the complexities that were covered by that report and the fact that it was one of the early versions of how concrete remedies are given to ensure that the Gogo Dlaminis actually are placed as close as possible to where they would have been if government had done the right thing?
Advocate Mushwana?
Yes, I'm there. Yes, you're actually making me recall what happened in Nandoni. A week ago, I happened to have been in Venda, and I found the team still working in Nandoni Dam to correct things that happened so many years back. You know, it's quite amazing how long it takes to get things done, even when case has been investigated. That particularly affects the people.
Absolutely.
Your parting shot to Advocate Madonsela, Advocate Mushwana?
I think I must definitely thank her firstly for having completed a term, because there are times when you think the years are not moving faster, looking at the amount of work that you still have to do. And I'm sure towards the end of the term, you could see that the conclusion of Nelson Mandela in his long walk to freedom, that when you come to an end and think you have finished, is the time when you begin to realize there's still a lot that still has to be done. And I also want to thank her for having kept the fires of that office burning, and in particular to really make it known in terms of ordinary people in South Africa, because as a new institution, with me and Seldi Batwa, tried to do whatever we did and left it up to her, and today it is known almost in every corner of this country, and I think she has done a good work under very difficult circumstances.
Thank you so much.
And I respect her tenacity to have been able, despite all of these difficulties, to investigate some difficult cases, make recommendations that made her unpopular, and in so doing demonstrate that sometimes you are forced to make recommendations, not because you want to, but because the law says you must make them.
Advocate Mushwana,
somebody must do that.
We thank you so much for taking your time, and we really, really appreciate it. It's 5:05. Time for news now with Anne Musa. And Miss Somebody, can you please introduce yourself to the nation? Hello. I'm fine. Do you recognize that voice? Advocate Madonsela, do you recognize that voice? Say hello again, love.
Pardon?
Do you recognize the voice? Say hello.
Hello? I'm battling to hear the voice.
Ooh, there's going to be trouble at home.
Oh my God. Hey, you guys are confusing me. Oh my God, my baby. How are you, my princess? Oh God. They didn't.
Voice. Hello.
These ladies are wrong. I was still battling to. Yes. How are you, my baby?
I'm good, thanks, and you, mommy.
Wow, what a pleasant surprise! Tsepiso has been bombing me with lots of surprises, and
thank you so much to Wenzile, because she's been a huge help to me.
Wow.
So what would you like to say to Advocate Madonsela? I think as a daughter.
To my mommy. I don't. As Advocate Madonsela, I'd like to say thank you on behalf of the nation for serving your country so diligently with such great conviction, pride, honor, dignity and so many principles that you instilled in that office that I think and I know that will succeed you. And as your daughter, I want to say I'm so proud of you, the woman that you are. Over the past 7 years, you've always been amazing, but over the past 7 years in this role of leadership, I've just seen you blossom like a rose. And with every challenge that came your way, you handled it with so much grace, pride, dignity that I couldn't have been blessed with a greater mom and a greater role model and just this incredible person that God has chosen to be my mom. No one else's. Mine. Out of billions of people who have lived in this world, I am blessed enough to call this incredible woman that the country and the world admire so much my mom. So, yeah, love you, Mama.
Thank you, my princess. You're so grown up. I was listening there. Now you say I couldn't recognize your voice. I can't recognize the grown woman that you have become. And it's such a joy to listen to you because the things that you're saying about me reflect your own values about what you value in life and what kind of woman you yourself see yourself as and aspire to be. And it's been a joy. Firstly, I just want to thank you for sometimes being the mother instead of being a daughter. And at times I felt that you guys took too much pressure and took all of the anger and all of the sadness whilst I was just trying to stay strong. And I felt that especially in the early years, it took a bit of a toll on you guys to have to deal with this kind of pressure and find yourself having to act as a support system.
I actually have tears in my eyes just listening to that because it's real and beyond the smoke and mirrors. I think you are a person, and that's why we've invited you here, Advocate Madonsela, irrespective of what impressions we may have of you. We really, really appreciate you, opening up. And to you as well, Wenzile, we appreciate you taking the time to join us. And I want to say thank you.
What a joy, my baby. I'm so proud of you.
Mama. Thank you for being my mommy.
Well, thank you for being my princess and for the woman you have grown to become. And for the fact that I never had to worry about you in the last 7 years. You took your place and you played your own part in anchoring our democracy.
Wenzile, thank you so much. 13 minutes past 5 in conversation with Advocate Thuli Madonsela. By the way, we are taking your calls 0891 104 209. We've been, introducing various people to you because these are the people who formed a part of Advocate Madonsela's life. As much as we want to talk about her career, but we want to show the other side of her, who she is as a person and the experiences that have shaped her life. Mutsi Ratsomo asks here, Advocate, did you ever at any stage during your 7-year tenure feel that your safety at risk because of your work? I ask this because of what you've just said to your daughter now.
Well, about the safety, yes. There were lots of concerns by my family and there were threats. However, personally, my approach was always and is always the same. We're all going to die. It's a question of when you're going to die. If you have to die because you're doing what you believe is right, it's fine. But if you die doing what somebody else is causing you to do, that is sad because then you would die for a cause that is not yours.
I want to ask another quick question before I introduce our next guest. You made a very interesting comment at some point. I think it was last week when you said if politicians want to engage in a children's game of name calling, it kind of implied that you said, I'm going to take off my gloves after I'm done with this office here. Do you think you're ready for that? I mean, people always feel, and it's a criticism, but I also think it's credit to you that you have been cool, calm, and collected. But I also think it also lends to the misinterpretation by some that you're not real. They say, how can she not get angry at that? I mean, I would be seething. And I know I've had an interview with you where you said to me, okay, now I'm really angry. And you did sound it. So tell me about the most hurtful things and the things that you feel you didn't say to people that need to be said.
Well, I do get angry. The difference is that I I don't shout, and secondly that it's temporary, and usually I only get angry when I'm hungry. because of just in Zulu we say indla libangulak, and it's about sugar levels. Why I don't get angry is because I forgive people. I know that when people know better, they will do better. That doesn't make me an angel. I have not only become like this as a public protector. People thought I was too nice when I was being interviewed because I had been in the Law Commission for 3 years. And during the Law Commission, we engaged with stakeholders. And one of the toughest investigations I had just done, or research processes I'd just done, was on prostitution, where people came, as I was chairing those meetings, they came, some very angry because of their religious beliefs, and others coming angry because of what they've seen, the atrocities committed against sex workers. And I had to sit there in those public forums, calm everyone and embrace everyone, affirm that whatever cause they have is real to them, but let's respect each other, and at the end the process was going to be fine.
What is the most difficult comment you've ever faced, the most insulting? And still I go back to, what is it that you feel you've held back on saying that needs to be said?
Well, let's go back to the people who are playing games. I didn't mean I'm going to be nasty, because when pigs are playing in the mud, you don't have to descend to the mud and play like a pig too. What I meant was, if anybody right now insults me in the manner that constitutes defamation, I will sue them for defamation, and I will donate the money to a charity of my choice. And I mean it. If anybody insults me from today onwards, I will sue for defamation, and I will proceed. I've heard lawyers coming to me and say, please, we're ready for to take this defamation suit. So I am inviting all of those who have no other thing to do other than to defame me.
Including those who call you a spy.
Yes. Can they do it now from today?
0891-104-209. Please call. If you want to call Advocate Madonsela a spy, she says, call in now. Let's do this. Let's get into it.
And I will immediately issue instructions and get a lawyer. I need that money for charity. And some of it could go to Fees Must Fall, actually.
Do you know the person? Okay, let me introduce my next guest. Do you know when you're a journalist, sometimes you salivate at stuff. You know, you're like, yo, I wish it could happen now. Like, and Ms. Thandabantu is economics editor here at SABC, but she's also somebody who has known Advocate Madonsela for quite a while. I was quite intrigued about how you met. Thandeka, can you start with the story? And I'm going to get Advocate Madonsela to complete
the story.
How could you do that?
I was at WITS. I was a WITS student, and I was... yesterday we were together with Advocate Madonsela at WITS as alumni, trying to sort out something. And we were with one of the student leaders, and she said... I am the old her. And I said, yes, I'm the old you. I was a student radical on campus, and it was during the state of emergency. And so these days are back now, and it looked like it looked on campus today. It looked like that back then. And so I was arrested and taken to John Foster Square, and spent a month in solitary confinement. And then after that, Sun City Prison, which is where I met
the notorious
notorious prison.
And nobody knows about that. You know, I deliberately never made detention a way to fame and a way to getting jobs.
Nobody knows that you were a Sun City Advocate Madonsela.
Yes.
No.
There was
and what state were you in?
There was a section called Babasokh. It was the part where they kept political prisoners. So they kept us there, and then there was an area where we would wait for the sun.
Yes.
I guess this is why it's called Sun City. And in the quad, we'd have these discussions about the politics of the day and gender.
Yes,
and
you were pregnant then?
I was very pregnant, but trying to conceal it. And
I knew Deborah was pregnant also, and she lost the baby.
Yes.
Did yours survive?
She's a almost 30-year-old economist.
My goodness, a Sun City girl.
A Sun City baby.
Wow.
From Babasov.
I wonder where's that sisterhood? I know Mum Vesta passed on.
Yes.
Susie
worked with you at some stage on gender, and the rest of the crowd from Sun City.
You know, Advocate Madonsela, and I'm glad you both are laughing in remembrance, but there's also another side to it, and many families can attest to that. Much was lost to the struggle. And you spoke earlier on about how it's so sad to find ourselves back there. When you look back, not only at your career, but the past years, your role, what would you say you lost, Advocate Madonsela? What was lost to you?
I think what I lost is nothing compared to what Mam Winnie, Mam Albertina Sisulu, Helen Joseph, and all of the other older women, Abu Sistandi Modise, who went into exile, lost, and what Abu Tandega went through. I went only into detention for 3 months, and fortunately, most of it happened as I was on holiday, because I was studying in Swaziland and working for a union, and they collected me on my way back from work to going home. So I think it's innocence that was lost, but I think a lot was gained as well, because whilst we're there was also discussions. And I remember singing those songs. Bahleli bonke etilongweni, bahleli bonke kwanongqongqo, bahleli bonke etilongweni, bahleli bonke kwanongqongqo. You know, those things we sang at night.
I'm taken back there. I'm with you. Wow. Okay, I think I'm going to take a break.
It's more beautiful when women prisoners sing it.
Absolutely. Because we would sing also when we were already in our rooms. And then the voices would just coordinate in the ear.
And the echoes.
And you'd just be a choir.
I was so happy to see her.
I saw the one who was working for Kucha recently. She was also at Verts, huh?
Yes, I remember her.
I'm just trying to remember now. Yeah,
it's
amazing to see the group survivors that they've made. They've continued also to be concerned about social justice, about human rights, and the rule of law.
I must offhand apologize to my listeners, because I know lots of SMSs are coming through, lots of calls, but I think with everything that we've got, we're trying to, as much as possible, accommodate everybody. And because Advocate Madonsela, I have to let her go much sooner than we'd planned. I hope you bear with me. We've literally got another 12 minutes with her. So we're going to take your calls. I know she'll be listening on her way back. She's going to Wits University. She did mention she has an emergency, because you know what's been going on in the news. But Advocate Madonsela, I've just given you a sheet of paper. It's somebody who faxed in, her case, and I want you to talk about that in just a moment. But we've been speaking about the high profile cases, the Kokotlamini cases, and it's been very difficult to get people. We've tried, and I understand. We're as best as possible trying to observe and respect people's privacy. But I do have a very grateful person on the line by the name of Menomonde Mapetla. A very good evening to you, Mapetla. I know you are quite relieved with the findings of the Public Protector's report, an investigation into you. Would you like to say hi and perhaps convey you? I know you did at some point, but here we are, another opportunity to convey your thanks and whatever else you wanted to say to her.
Okay, thank you, Tabiso. In Africa they pay cattle from Oko Mapeta, okay. Yes. On the lighter side of things. I would certainly like to thank Advocate Madonsela. It was quite a grueling 5 years, but in the end, I was very thankful that she was able to sift through the lies, the muck, and everything else, and finally restore my good name. Because I do believe very strongly that the only true currency that a person has is their good name and integrity. Because you can have all the wealth, but if you are not in order inside, and indeed in your community, then you have lost a lot. It is particularly painful, of course, when they are deliberately, when you become deliberately maligned, just because people can, and they have the positional authority and the funds that come with that to malign people and get away with it. And whilst I was always at pains every year, I'm sure I was always writing and so forth, but eventually I am very thankful that the matter was concluded in the manner that it was, and that my name was cleared, and that thanks to Advocate Madonsela and of course her team, I believe I have been restored to the Nomonde that I know.
Advocate Madonsela,
I'm very grateful for that.
Perhaps you'd like to speak about this case in particular, because there was a lot of publicity around it. And obviously for those who are unfamiliar about what I'm talking about, just to take them through what either the challenges were. Mema Petla here is talking about, especially where resources are available in besmirching either person's character, etc.
Right. Thank you, Mrs. Mapetla, for your kindness and patience. It took 3 years, and those are some of the problems that we have, because investigation is a little bit easier, but report writing, you need more skills and more resources to do that. Collateral damage was the report that we released. For us, it was not just about Mrs. Mapetla, it was about making sure that whistleblowers get the necessary protection. And this report is about those people who suffer because those in authority don't realize that what this person is going through is a backlash for whistleblowing. And that's what we found in relation to Mrs. Mapetla in collateral damage. And that's what we found in one of the last reports, which is called Rocking the Boat. Again, another whistleblower who was dealt with terribly.
Thank you so much, Menomonde Mapetla. We're taking calls on 0891 104 209 in conversation with the Public Protector. Joe in Bloemfontein says, former PP, what happened to the Free State 40 Millions website saga? What happened to the 2013 Pumelelo horse racing report by complainant Pindi Kema, which is the email the facts that we've got here. So let's talk about that, Advocate.
Yes. The website one, it was finalized and given to our quality assurance unit, which is a small unit. And unfortunately, by the time I left, I hadn't seen the final version. You get different versions and you send them back. Ultimately, we're trying to train our people to make sure that the report writing is perfect, so that when a report reaches my desk, it doesn't need any further tweaking. You can just look at small things and then align it with my own personal style only, but not to restructure. Mam Kema, I am terribly sorry wherever you are. This is one report that came very early in September 2013, that would be exactly 3 years ago. We had several meetings. We have several promises to Mam Kema, but there were so many investigations that were taking place at the Good Governance and Integrity Unit. And that's why I think that even if we do get, the office gets additional resources, you would still need to have periodic people you bring in for 3 months, you bring in for 6 months to specialize on certain things. Finally, I got a report that I quality assured about a year ago. Incidentally, the other side has also been pressurizing me to finalize this report, which is the racehorse people. I sent it back because there were discrepancies in terms of the evidence. This is one of those cases where I had also been involved in the early stages. I interviewed Mrs. Kema myself. I had seen some of the evidence that the team had shown me. It's really an argument where it is said that at the dawn of democracy, a lot of land that was belonging to government was illicitly given to people. So the allegation on this one is that the horse racing courses were given to this other group for R1, or this one, the allegation was that it was sold for R1. Well, selling for R1 doesn't mean selling it for R1. It means it was a gift. And obviously the other party has a different version. And when I got the final report, I don't want to say on air what was the final decision that was presented to me, but it was not consistent with the evidence that I had seen earlier regarding the origins of the slave.
Okay. Just a quick one, Advocate Madonsela. It's an unsigned SMS. It says, "My public protector, in the case of Pansy Tlakula, you carried on with the report on the case when she hadn't had the time to study your findings. Your reasons."
The final findings don't need to be studied. I mean, think about judges, good people. When a judge issues a judgment, you go to court. You wouldn't have studied the findings. But as a courtesy, we send the report before the event. With her, we did send the report the night before. That means by the time we issued the report at 2:00 that day, she had seen it, but she hadn't studied it. Perhaps going forward, there will be a much more better approach to giving people the report. But we also don't want to give it too well ahead of releasing it, because you don't want it to hit the media.
Our final minutes of conversation with Advocate Thuli Madonsela, the former public protector, Janusz, Kojo and Seti. If I could just ask you honestly, with the greatest humility, 30 seconds each, so that we allow others to call through as well. Janusz?
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, Janusz,
Hello?
Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. Short to the point, Mrs. Madonsela, you are a hero of as you know, and we need your service. I know you left the politics for now, but please don't leave us. I'm begging you. I'm the member of the UDM, but if you have your own political party, I will with the pleasure join you and give you all this, everything what I've got. So please don't leave us and be with us, stay with us, maybe create some political party, because you proved it to us that you are a person we can rely on.
Thank you, Janusz. We get that. Kojo in the Eastern Cape, just a brief one from you, please.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I would want to greet the advocate.
Greetings, sir.
Yeah, I would want to find out that during your term of office, was there any time that your recommendations ran into trouble apart from the Nkandla case?
All right, thank you, Kojo. I will give you that answer. ZD in KZN, a very brief one, please.
Okay, Sifiso, hello to you and good evening to your guest as well. My sister, Thuli Madonsela. I must say you have a very serene voice. I know I'm high-pitched, but you have a very serene voice. And wherever you go, whatever you do, may the good Lord shower His richest blessings upon you and always be with you, because you are the best, better than all the rest. That's by Tina Turner, hey? Not me.
Thank you, Zeti.
Okay, you're
Thank you so much. And the question by Janusz, or statement, also reflected by Motshwari Kabelo Wamanong. Sorry, apologies. Sometimes it's the writing's not clear here. Would you ever consider being a Minister of Justice, if not the President? If you have any political ambitions at all, even including being, a cabinet member, has that ever crossed your mind, given, of course, your latest appointment?
No, I really don't have any political ambitions. I'm a very spiritual person and believe that whatever you have a passion for is related to your purpose in life. And my purpose in life is more around helping people to vindicate their rights or adjudicating when people have legal disputes.
And if you weren't listening earlier on, the former public protector has accepted an offer to become the chairperson of social justice in the law faculty at the University of Stellenbosch.
Today we gathered to hear the outcome of an investigation I have carried in my capacity as public protector into security upgrades at the President's private residence. Incidentally, If the state had heeded its duty from 2009, when the media broke the story on the Ngandla project, it would have saved the citizens. We invested trust and taxes in the public administration, millions of rand. We had virtually concluded this report by April last year.
So the elephant in the room, obviously, and there's certain questions that I really feel I'm not going to ask. I think some of them have been covered. But an unsigned SMS says, do you think without President Zuma's mistakes, would South Africans and the world know about Thuli Madonsela? In short, did Zuma's shortcomings propel her fame? So this is the reason why you heard that excerpt. The elephant in the room I was talking about is, you are sitting with me here at the SABC. And there's been a great deal of disagreement around your report. Do you think it's over?
No, it probably is not going to be over because of the one report that has been taken on review. There will be a bit of going forwards and backwards around that report. But I want to believe that whatever conversation takes place around that report should be anchored in the Constitution, particularly Section 96 about executive ethics, Section 195, which is about the ethics in the public service, where it says every public service activities should be executed with the highest level of ethics.
I know I've got to let you go, so just very quickly, Advocate Madonsela, the question being, and perhaps in a word, some are SMSing about the state capture report. Would you be involved in any way? I think more pertinently, is there any room for you to be involved in that report?
Not really, except if obviously somebody requests me to provide information that I have as the report goes forward. It makes sense if the new pub protector wants to hear my views, for example, about why I took the approach I took. Before she makes a decision about what approach she's going to take, I would be available. But in the report, the way it's drafted, it envisaged no further process for the pub protector except the implementation of remedial action, and the pub protector would then just make sure that that remedial action is implemented.
This is me being vain and imagining that you are singing the song by Tracy Chapman that you really don't want to leave us, Advocate Madonsela.
And I'll turn right back around. Give me one reason to stay here, and I'll turn right back around.
That, Advocate Madonsela, thank you so much for your time. We know it's been a busy week. We appreciate your engaging with our guests, and we're going to take more calls. I hope you'll allow me, and you can just flesh out then. Have a safe trip. All the best with the rest of your business today.
Thank you, Tapiso, and thank you to our guests from Jay, Professor Nhlapo, Advocate Mushwana, on whose shoulders I stand, and our guest Tandika, and my beautiful princess, Wenzi. It's been an enjoyable afternoon.